great for everybody to make a 5-minute presentation on their view of the system and what they learned from it, what they thought. And just a couple of opening comments. Number one is it's a very, very complicated system. So my hat's off to anybody who can explain it even reasonably in 5 minutes. Second is that it's a work in progress. All systems are infinitely complex because ultimately everything is included. You say, it's the story of the butterfly flapping his wings in New Hampshire, and they have a tornado in Japan. They're all interrelated, and like I gave Dr. M last time, the problem that he's causing cancer in South Africa because he's driving his car, and then he says, I don't have a car, so it's not his fault, it's yours, Bhupesh. But those relationships exist, and it's to the extent that you want to explore and understand them that you study them. Very often we have a simple problem, we draw a circle around it, and we say it's related to this workstation, or we say it's related to this value stream, or it's related to this customer or this machine. And that is always partially true. Okay, fixing it may be enough to satisfy what you want to have done, but there's other things that always come into play. Okay, there's always training, there's always other people, there's other interactions, etc. Okay, and it's one of the reasons why there really is in our world no such thing as cause and effect. There really is not. Okay, because when you study cause and effect, a cause is something that creates an effect. Likewise, an effect has a cause. So there's a one-to-one relationship between the cause and the effect. Okay. But that is never the case in reality, because we live in an environment where all kinds of things impact. Okay. And so, as a matter of fact, I was thinking about this last night as I was for this class, yesterday as I was preparing for this class. And I'm going to put up a posting about cause and effect, because we talk about causes and we talk about root causes and stuff like that. And if we want to talk about them, that's fine, but we need to really understand what they really are. Okay. And we kind of fool ourselves sometimes in thinking we're gonna get to root causes when we really haven't gotten to root causes. We've just got to the one thing that will eliminate most of the symptoms we're worried about. Okay. And that's the point in doing a systems diagram. It shows you at some level how these things all interact. And I'm sure when we're done with these discussions today, you're going to have a different perspective of workforce engagement. I will guarantee you. Okay. And I will guarantee you that I will as well. And maybe even Dr. M. Dr. M has been in this longer and deeper.
Speaking about Dr. M, I'm going to start the presentation first, so that
okay. Let me finish my little spiel here. And that is that Dr. M has been in this deeper and longer than any of us. Okay. But I'm sure he will gain some things as well. Okay. So with each one of that, I'm going to ask for a favor. Dr. M, when you're done with your presentation, I will time you. And at 5 minutes, I'll say, Uncle. Okay.
I have a timer on my screen.
And then will you time everyone else? And so
I got a timer on my screen. I got a timer on my screen.
5 minutes.
Yes. So let me start by sharing my screen. Since I muddied the water, let me start first. Can you see the screen?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Since I said I muddied the water and okay. My time starts now. Can you see the time?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I lost 15 seconds. So here you are, we are talking about the science of workforce engagement and Dr. M here. So is the screen clear to all of you?
Yes.
Voice is clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So I started by saying that let me first define each of them to get the operational definition right. So here you go. Science is based on the systems theory. The spelling of theory is wrong. And systems have a purpose with distinct properties and system elements and system interconnections. And then we have that purpose of a system is what it does. And that is Weber. And there are two types, as a nominal and a de facto. Nominal is what is stated, and de facto is what is actually accomplished. So how do we define the engagement? This is from page 30 of chapter 3. Engagement is defined, it is a discretionary behavior that is voluntary behavior, and even more, it is intrinsically motivated. So that is the definition I have for engagement. And I also took the Kahn's construct. This is from figure 3.1 on page 42, where you get the basics, the beyond the basics, and the high leverage points, because this gets integrated into the systems diagram that we are going to study. And this is the system diagram that we are going to talk about. So this dual looping, you got the engagement loop, you got the disengagement loop, and I will just separate them as I do the presentation. And let's see, we have the three workforces: the loyalist, the lurkers, and the laggers. The intention is to get as much loyalists as possible, move the lurkers around to the loyalist. And then we have the engagement loop. In engagement loop, if you take, the thing is that don't waste your time on the disengagement, spend more time on the engagement loop. And in engagement loop, we have the 7 critical subsystems, all in red are interconnected. You have got the 5 basics, which is listed over there: know what to do, how to do, the resource to do it, want to do it, and do better. And on the other side, beyond basics, if you take a look at beyond basics, you can get the Hoshin Kanri planning, you stand-up meeting, business meeting matrix. These are all and leader standard work. And on the other side, when these are together, then the operators start, loyalists by themselves are motivated to do work, and they do the work, and with all these 3 together, they do their work and also Kaizen. And if you put all the 3 red arrows together, you get the intrinsic motivation loop, which is subsystem 4, as you can see it over there. Now, subsystems 5 and 6 is the positive words that is being spread around, and they speak it aloud, these people. Now, what is the 7th one? The 7th one comes from the intrinsic loop. This is the management, sincere management feedback. If you go to the Kahn's construct, you can see that definitely that this is there's a lot of positive transparency over there. And I'm not looking at the negative part of it, but there is all the intrinsic motivation, transparency, etc., from the management point of view. So this is the engagement construct that I was talking to you about, which gets built up. The main idea is to build the engagement loop and so that we get the original lurkers into the loyalists. The loyalists becomes more loyal. That's the engagement loop that we are talking about. And there's dual duping. And if you can see over there, there is a valve sort of a thing that you can move up and down. The whole thing is move this up, retain it, sustain it, and move the original lurkers up to this, and how far they can go. And then you know who has written this book. That's Lonnie Wilson. And I stopped sharing. Thank you very much.
Dr. M, you're incredibly not only time but thorough. Okay, So are you prepared to time the next person, Dr. M?
Who wants to?
What I would suggest
Figure
is, as we go through these, as you have questions, comments, ideas, thoughts, jot them down. And then when everybody's had a chance to present, then we'll go through all of our thoughts. And I have a couple of closing comments. I told you I would give you my explanation and we have some closing comments. So if
Who
you could
wants
do
to-
that,
Who wants
so who volunteers to be next?
Who wants to share? Nitin?
Oh, Nitin, very good. I
Okay,
love
let,
volunteers.
let me share the screen with you. I'm making you the co-host so that you can share the screen. Let me know when you're ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let me time you. Just 1 minute. Nitin, ready to go?
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
To me, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
see your screen.
Okay. So this is with respect to chapter number 7. So what we have learned is there are two purposes. One is nominal purpose of the system and one is de facto purpose. So nominal purpose, which is actually official stated intention of leadership, which is conveyed to every person. And de facto purpose is the observed result of the symptom or actual result. So these two purposes are explained in this next slide. Okay. Okay, is it visible?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So what Lonnie has explained in the two loops is loop of engaged person, loop of actively disengaged person. So loop of engagement start like the engaged persons, they are satisfied with their work, so they do improvements in their regular work, that is kaizens, that get resulted into improvement in the workplace, improvement in productive quality, inventory, many things. This leads to business growth. It spread the positive word about the system, about that person, and that makes that person a loyalist person, and it helps to create more engaged employees, as it creates a positive word of mouth. So this is engagement loop, and this create positivity to the employee which are not engaged, which Lonnie has mentioned as a lurkers. And the second loop is of the actively disengaged person. So they are not satisfied with their work. They do minimum said work to them. So there is no improvement in their work. This leads to no improvement in business growth as such. It is just accomplishment of the day-to-day task. Since there is no improvement, it spreads the negative words, and it creates that employee more frustrating, more disengaged, and this creates the negativity to the employees who are not engaged. So the same this thing, so the first loop what we have seen is the de facto purpose of system, and the loop of actively disengaged person is the nominal purpose, which they are doing this the minimum requirement. For example, if somebody is doing kaizen, is improvement, doing improvement in the system, creating the positive word, so like with employee recognition this can happen. If it is not happening, that then we can term as it as a critical employee who are spreading the negativity. So the supervisor has to observe such person so that he can avoid this thing, the disengagement loop. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Nitin. Very interesting, different approach. Who volunteers
Oh,
next?
you got to kill the slide. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
who's-
okay.
Who wants to present next?
Yeah, Doctor, I'll present.
Who, Bhupesh or Nitin Ganesh? Bhupesh,
Yeah, I'll present, no problem.
we have to make you. Hey, what happened? Nitin Patil, you got
Yes.
to disengage yourself as a co-host.
I need to?
Now, Nitin, Ganesh, remove the co-host permission. Okay, I remove the co-host permission, and Bhupesh, I'm handing it over to you. So I'm making you the. Okay,
Okay.
just 1 minute. Let me know when you're ready to go so that I can start the timer. Just 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Just 1 minute. 1 minute. I'm not. Yeah, you ready? Here we go.
Yes. Yeah. I was studying this, this engagement loop and disengagement loop. Okay. So my observation or my learning is this entire picture is very nicely, depicting the how management is actually creating a disengagement loop and engagement loop. Okay. My experience, I'm trying to put it that, what happens initially in the absence of any improvement initiative in most of the company, okay, the 5 basics are missing for workers. Missing in the sense they are there but not incomplete. So the 5 steps, know what to do, know how to do, and have the resources to do. These are 3 definitely management responsibilities. Okay. Now the shortage of first 3 points leads to point number 4 and 5. The book says very clearly that on day 1, the operator, the worker, or anybody is of motivated to come and do the work. But as he understands that first 3 things are missing, the point number 4 and 5 are largely missing because of absence of first 3. So the first 3 are definitely the basics required. Okay. And this I'm talking about the disengagement loop. Okay. Why? Because in the absence of these 5 basics, there is no question of engagement loop. Okay. Therefore, maximum laggards and lurkers and minimum loyalists. Okay. In the presence of disengagement loop. And this engagement loop happens because of 5 basics are missing. This is my experience. Okay. Now, further, as a Kaizen facilitator, when we start improvement journey, first 3 points are focused so that people in the entire plant or organization get to know the basics. Okay. And once they get to know the basic, slowly, point number 4 and 5 become stronger. Then they start, want to do the job. Even they think about doing some improvement or want to do the job better. Subsequently, I'm focusing on the disengagement loop. The diameter, initially imagine the disengagement loop is too big. Now, once the 5 basics, there is a subsystem 1 gets implemented, the disengagement loop reduces and laggards move to lurkers and lurkers starts moving to loyalists. So the journey is from the bottom to middle and middle to top. The birth of engagement loop takes place here. Now people start getting engaged because 5 basics are coming as a subsystem 1. And slowly the subsystem 2, which is, beyond the basic. When the subsystem 2 beyond the basic is added, okay, now the engagement loop, more and more lurkers move to loyalists, also laggards move to lurkers. So imagine maximum, bottom, middle, and the minimum on the top. And over a period of time, intrinsic motivational loop is sprouted. First 2 subsystems, subsystem 1 and subsystem 2, will ensure that there could be some chances of intrinsic motivational loop. Because in the absence of engagement loop, when the workers have to work in a disengagement, I mean, it may not be very articulated, but it is apparent that it is engagement loop is missing and therefore by default, it is disengagement loop is prevailing. So only after subsystem 1 and subsystem 2 gets implemented over a period of time, the time required to implement subsystem 1 and 2 itself takes good amount of time. And basically, it's a journey of from moving from disengagement to engagement over a period of time. Okay, so this is what my observation combined with my experience, that yes, it's our responsibility to take everyone out from the disengagement loop to engagement loop. And then, the intrinsic motivational loop basically is like a virus. Once they see a role model is created in one part of the factory, then the other people, other operators and workers start, doing kaizens and improvement. And then intrinsic motivational loop gets expanded. So this is what my, little learning I try to put it here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
good, Bhupesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can
Yeah.
stop sharing, Bhupesh.
Yeah.
Nitin, first I got to see that I remove him remove the co-host permission. And Nitin, you're in?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Where are you? Okay. I'm getting excited with this. Tell me when you want the timer to start. Can we start, Nitin? Nitin Ganeshan.
Just a minute.
Did I share the screen with you? I did.
One second, I am having a little problem.
No problems. Your time has not started yet. Yep.
Yeah, can you
Started your
see?
time.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I'm started your time.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Dear friends, I try to explain the system diagram for this workforce engagement with an example. So as we know, we have the three type of loyalists, original lookers, and laggards. For loyalists, I have taken an example to show how the system model works for engagement loop. Here, the work starts with a qualified workforce. That means they know what to do. Then they undergo on-job training, which they follow the procedures. By doing this, they carry out the improvements activities, like they apply the SMED, which results in improving the OE, increases output with the same infrastructure. This leads them to have a higher incentives. When this department or this activity is completed, they would like to share the success story across the whole factory or across the department, and they become the role model of the other department. This is how I feel the loyalist works. So this gives the entire factory and different departments look at the different people who are working, who are loyalists, and they are working by themselves. So what happens when they share the success story, the laggard loss rate automatically goes up and you find the new lookers. Now, when we look at the disengagement loop, so disengagement loop, for this I have looked at an example where it is a labor-oriented job, where there is no pokayoke or mistake proofing happening in that department, due to which there is a high rejection level. When such things are happening, no improvements are carried, means the mindset of the people are very low. The output is that there is no increased output, the department is stagnant. And across the divisions, what it becomes like an arrogant department where the people are not listening or they are not ready. Like this, the picture is been displayed. So what is the reason? Reason is that for me, according to me, that no improvement carrying out in any area will result in losing of the loyalist rate. This is what I have tried to understand from our chapter 7. Okay, thank you.
Very good, Nitin. Very good. Do you also go by Nitin, or do you wish us to call you Ganesan, or what?
Nitin Ganesha.
Nothing Ganeshan.
Nitin Ganesan. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. So that just leaves Raj Kumar. Is he the only one
Yes.
left?
Yeah, you're going to move out.
Yeah, one second.
In Texas, they said kill the slides. That's what Mike Connor tells me. He's from San Antonio. Kill the slide.
Yes.
So let me now do the honors of removing him as the co-host. I love this, making people co-host and removing them as a co-host. Here we go. Raj, where are you? Am I with you, Raj? Raj
So
Kumar.
Trying to
first
share
you're
my
sitting
screen,
on top
still
of the world.
You are disabled.
Excuse me, Raj, just 1 second, if I may. Dr. M, first you're sitting on top of the world in a position of power, and now you have all this technological power. So I think we have found a man who things have gone to his head, you know.
Okay, just
But what
1
the
minute.
heck?
I got to start the timer. Just 1 minute.
Well, that's okay. He can have an extra 30 seconds. That's fine by me.
Probably I'll finish it early because I was.
No, you start from your first slide so that I can start from your first slide. This is your first slide?
This is my first slide. This is my
Okay,
first slide.
so your time starts now.
Okay, all right. So I just mostly I was trying to understand the system as a system more. So what is a system? Just the understanding is that wherever there is a purpose to be obtained, which it takes multiple and interconnected subsystems, which creates to have a system. Okay. System has got many subsystems, and system has got purpose with distinct properties, elements, and many system interactions. The purpose is a nominal or de facto. So purpose of system is what it does. So the perceived. Nominal purpose of an enterprise is the official and stated intention of the leadership, which defines the purpose, what is supposed to be. And what is the de facto purpose is the actual result, the observed result of the system when the system is actually achieves it, accomplishes it. And then I was just trying to understand on the 9 distinct properties of the system. So each element affects the behavior of the entire system. Behavior of elements and their effects on a whole are interdependent. A system has the identified part, the whole cannot be divided into independent parts. Every element of a system has properties. It loses when it's separated from the system. And every system has some properties that none of its part can do it, and these are essential part of the system that is to be to function it. To be useful, a system or subsystem must have a purpose. System essential properties derive more from its parts interactions than from their actions. These properties will definitely persist over time in various circumstances. So therefore, it loses the essential properties when the system is taken apart. Because of this, a system is a whole that cannot be understood by analysis. So we have to put them together as synthesis and to understand. So when every subsystem has been studied, we put it together, and whether that works or not to be done to understand the purpose of the system, whether it works well. That's all.
That's great.
Very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different presentations. 1, 2, 3.
Kill the slide.
And 6 different perspectives. Wonderful. Okay. Now what I'd like to do is just open it up to the group so we can question one another. And then I'd like to leave about 20 minutes at the end because I have a couple of questions for you and I've got a couple of observations I'd like to pass on. And I owe you my 5-minute explanation. Well, heck, as a matter of fact, why don't I give you my 5-minute explanation now, as you did before?
Just 1 minute. First, I have to remove him and make you the co-host.
Okay, but I don't have any slides prepared. Since everybody has seen the system diagram, I expect I can just speak from it. But so tell me when my time starts and I'll go.
Lonnie, your time starts now, Lonnie.
Okay, very good. Keep in mind that a system always has a purpose. Dr. Emming used the term aim, but it's an objective. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be defined. It needs to be understood. Okay. And in this case, the diagram that I have actually has 2 systems that work together to create a larger system. There's the system of engagement and the system of disengagement. They are different systems or different subsystems because they have a different purpose. The purpose of disengagement is that. The purpose of engagement is that. Okay. Now, in all systems, there are 3 elements to keep in mind. 3 large elements. One is called stocks, and stocks are the things you want to move around. And in this case, they're the lurkers, laggards, and loyalists. Okay. These relationships. And we talk about them in terms of cause and effect relationships, but they're really not cause and effect relationships. They're more better described as influences. Okay. And the third thing is they have delays. Okay. And delays turn out to be very, very important. Okay. And if you notice in the diagram, you'll see someplace where there's a cause and effect relationship with 2 lines going across it. That indicates there's a delay in what follows. Okay. That gets to be very, very important, particularly as we're pushing the topic of engagement. Okay. Now, in the system engagement, we talk about 7 critical subsystems. The basics, okay, is system 1, knowing what to do, how to do it, when to do. Bhupesh went through that excellently. Okay. Beyond the basics, okay, which are basically communication techniques. Okay. And the point of beyond the basics is if you want people to be engaged, to act like they own the business, they need to know about the business. Okay. So those communication techniques are very, very important. The third subsystem is Kaizen. The fourth one is the intrinsic motivation loop, which I call the driver to the system. Okay. And the fifth one is the power of positivity or the power of negativity, depending upon which circle you're talking about. And it is the one piece in the system that is not physical at all. It's totally intellectual. It's people's attitudes. It's their beliefs. It's how they talk. It's how they walk. It's how they act. It's how they interact. Okay. But it's very crucial. It's very crucial. Okay. The sixth one is what I call the most understated system, and it's the cultural network. The cultural network is the way in which you get information around the company. Okay. Now, here is a problem. Managers think their webinars and their speeches and their bulletin board postings are important. They are not. Of the work that actually transmits information, that's less than 5% of the value. Almost 90% of the value is people talking to people, maybe while they're working, maybe while they're standing around the water cooler, maybe over lunch, maybe on the carpool to work. That's where the real information gets transmitted. Okay. That network is completely underestimated by virtually all managers. Okay. And the seventh one is sincere management feedback. Okay. And the reason I use the word sincere is that if you notice that each of those 4 elements walking the talk, situational leadership, etc. All of those are physical things. They're behavioral. You can see managers do them or not do them. Okay. And I like to say, watch what their feet do, don't watch what their lips do. Okay. And that's the important thing. The sincere part is when they start moving, when they start spending their time on it. Okay. Now, when you get these things going in the right way, you will transfer lurkers to loyalists if the engagement circle is strong. If the disengagement loop is stronger, you will transfer lurkers to laggards. Okay. And what you want to do is you want to convert the laggards into lurkers and the lurkers into engagement. Okay. And that increases the engagement loop. Both the engagement and the disengagement loop are called reinforcing loops. In other words, as you go around the loop, you pick up more people who are engaged, and then that creates more people going around the loop. It's like a snowball going downhill. The further it goes, the bigger it gets. Okay. Those are called reinforcing engagement loops. Okay. Type of engagement loops are called balancing loops, and I don't have one of those in this diagram. Okay. My speech. And I doubt that told you anything new beyond what you read in the book, because I think I put everything I know in the book. But with that in hand, do you have questions, one for the other, agreements, disagreements, like to pat people on the back or whatever? Anyone have a question? Speak up, please.
So, Lani, I have one question for the group. So, as I read the chapter and about the systems and definitions and subsystems and all that, and as we have these 7 subsystems that has to work along with each other in order to create an engaged workforce. The system number 5 that you also mentioned, the power of positivity, which sort of confuses me, as it's not physical, and it is about the hearts and minds of workers. What are they thinking? When we talk about other subsystems, we have specific tasks, that has been mentioned. If you do this to achieve the objective of that subsystem. But in this case, the subsystem 5, it is just the effect. It's so I mean, I just want to understand, is this subsystem 5 is the outcome of all other systems working together? The power of positivity?
Anybody want to jump in? What's your perception? Go ahead, Nitin.
Yeah, what I understood is the power of positivity. What I try to explain with my example, that when you do what to do, how to do, everything is done and you get a result. But getting a result is just not the end of the story for the workforce. When you get, one is the incentive, that is the management part. Second is when you share the success story with other department, with other divisions, the motivation level of the workforce increases to such a level that this power of positivity is at the peak and they can do anything for others. And that is how the word, what you call the spread of the word happens. That is what I understand.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, that's true to me too. That when you see success and success being demonstrated, success being spoken about, there are many people who would like to come into the success wagon, and they would formally or informally come and talk to you, speak to you about the positivity, and they themselves will try to, get visibility to some extent, and they would also like to be in the group that is a successful group, and they also start spreading positivity. That comes from within. There is an element of reward that is required with Nitin check. That's a different ball game, but that comes from the management. But there is a spread of word that they're doing good, and the people go to see, hey, let's show me what you have done. Show me this, show me that. So there is a sort of urge or energy that is spread. that is positive, and they're looking forward to doing something good and better. You know, there's some sort of a spirit that moves in of scaling things up together.
And there's a competition also.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, my
Let-
question
let-
is that it is an outcome of whatever we are doing in other subsystems. I don't see it, as a subsystem itself. What happens if you just take it out? Nothing, because if you continue doing other subsystems, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, this subsystem 5 is the outcome of what we do in other subsystems. So I just want to understand why Lonnie has, mentioned this as one of the subsystem when it itself doesn't have any function. It is outcome of other subsystem, what you're doing.
Okay, well, is it the outcome of other systems or is it the input?
I think it is the outcome.
Okay, well, let me give you let me argue with you for just a minute.
Mhm.
How positive do you think people are when they come to work mad, when they come to work stressed, when they come to work and all they do is bitch and moan and complain about the fact that the place is dirty, or that I say, I'm working my butt off, but Alam over here is taking it easy and we're both making $15 an hour. Do you think that has an impact on the workplace?
It does, yes.
Okay, well then that positivity could be an input. Okay, but let me digress for just a second and talk about systems. And one of the things about systems is they're infinitely complex. Okay, so we could, if we wanted to, take the power of positivity and make it a subsystem and talk about all of its inputs and outputs. Okay, and what you're saying is right. In this diagram, it's more treated like an output. Okay, but it has its own inputs as well. But pardon me. So we could put in there and so what would the system of the power of positivity look like?
I would
What
say
creates the power of positivity in people's
I
minds?
say that
What system follows the system,
Yes.
the power of positivity?
if if we have the 5 basics, beyond the basics, and doing the work and Kaizen is in place, that goes as an input to the subsystem of power of positivity, and the outcome is a positive workforce.
Okay, well, if you look at the two diagrams in concert, the two of them together, the actual element is not called the power of positivity, it's the intent positivity. Okay,
Yes.
so what I am assuming is that the things that cause engagement are positive in nature. Okay, and the things that cause negativity are negative in nature. Okay, people like, the same old stuff and their attitudes and that type of stuff. And the intensity of positivity has inputs that are related directly to intrinsic motivation. You can see intrinsic motivation is something that increases the intensity of the positivity. But the
Yes.
presumption is that if people are engaged, that's a positive thing. That's what we want. I guess that's an assumption that isn't stated there. Okay. But it is just a mental construct.
Right.
It's not a physical thing. Now you could measure it. In psychology, they've got terms like job satisfaction, job happiness, etc. Okay. But here's something else too, and I'm glad you brought this up, Alam. We live in a world of negativity. Okay. If you later, when we go through the math of this, you're going to find out that the intensity of positivity starts out at 1. The intensity of negativity starts out at 4. negativity is 4 times as powerful as positivity.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's some reasons for that. I'm not sure I fully grasp them. Let me rephrase that. I'm sure I do not fully grasp them. Things are that when you hear negative news, it tends to make you feel better. You know, you hear people in Somalia are starving. He's not starving. Wow. And so it tends to elevate you. Sometimes it makes you feel superior, okay, which is not necessarily good, but if you see everybody else around you doing extremely well, then you say, oh geez, you know, you feel bad. So negative news travels much faster. Winston Churchill said bad news gets halfway around the world before good news has a chance to put its pants on. Or something like that. But you're right, it's not a physical thing that we can attach and measure, but it's a definite impact. And it's kind of a tribute to what Dr. Deming said, and what I think Joseph Duran said also. He said that all things that are important, you cannot measure all things that are important, okay? But they're still important, okay? And so I didn't go to a great length to define that, except happiness and stuff like that. But I think if we wanted to, we could draw a diagram and we could measure it. You know, how positive is the workforce? As a matter of fact, in an employment survey, you get that answer. Not so much how positive they are, but you measure the positivity by how engaged they are. But yeah, when you have things that are not quite as tangible in there, they make you think a little bit. But that's the point. Is that important? You know, when you go home to your household, do you want everybody whining and complaining, or do you feel better when the kids say, "Oh, Daddy, you know, it's wonderful. They're glad to see you." You know, when it's a positive environment, almost all people respond to that well.
Lonnie, I just one, sorry, doctor, just one more follow-up question on this.
Go ahead.
Let's say an organization is working on all the subsystems, 5 basics, beyond the basics, Kaizen culture, power of this intrinsic motivation loop. All the subsystems, organization think they're doing well. And if they realize that, you know, some of the people are negative and positive, can they label those people as negative and take them out, so that this system, which is power of positivity, also starts working smoothly? Can we label people as negative when we have worked on all other subsystems and, you know, fix it?
What do you think, team?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, since Deming is in my mind, it's because we always, as Deming said, we have always had willing workers. It's a system that creates the management system, whatever he wanted to talk about, the system per se, not the people per se being negative or positive. Adding to that, since we are on Deming and the atmosphere, when he said drive out fear, the opposite of drive out fear is bringing something that you want to contribute to. So driving out fear is getting joy to work. So there's two. Fear, it's to me is a negative thing that takes place. You're scared to do, and you're going to ask. It's, you know, you do a punishment avoidance level of functioning, stagnate. The joy of work is totally different when there's something that comes into you. And the Kaizen to me comes from the joy of work. Can I experiment with this? Can I experiment with this? And then you take them out, bring them in. And there is an example that Lonnie has given, that you take them out of the system, but get it back to the standard work. So to me, this fear, this one aspect, the negativity of remove the fear, allow them to experiment, gives you a positive environment. And that is my limited point with Deming and removing the negativity of fear.
Yeah, I think there's another thing, just building on your thoughts, Dr. M. I don't think most people are naturally negative. I think they come to work positive and energized and wanting to do a good job. And it's what happens to them at work that causes them to, some of them to be negative and some of them to appear negative. Okay. And in that, some are negative at this moment, but are easily changed. Okay. There's some people who are just downers. Okay. But it's a small fraction of the population. Okay. And my advice to everybody is always the same. And that is, if you work on the system, you will get the 95% that really want to be engaged. They want to be. You'll get them. Okay. If you work on the 5%, the people who are just ornery and don't want to help and have been damaged somehow in life, you will not change them very much. Very seldom will you change them. My advice is ignore them. Okay. Put your energy into the people who are going to be productive. Put your energy into the people who want to change. If somebody does not want to change, trying to get them to change is an extremely difficult task. Okay. And what will happen is those people who are ornery and just different pretty soon will exclude themselves from the culture. They'll say, it ain't the same place it used to be, you know, and don't you remember how we used to be able to do the following and this and that? Okay. And they will quit, they will retire, they will move on. Okay. There's another reason too, and that is, for the most part, the people who are being negative are negative because either somehow in life they've been harmed, okay, or they're looking for attention. And so the more attention you give them, the more negativity you're going to create. Okay. So very often the best thing to do is, I mean, you don't want to completely ignore them, but you listen to what they have to say and you say, okay, alum, I heard what you have to say, but this is what we're going to do, you know, and then you proceed and you put your attention on the people who are rightly motivated. Okay. So the answer to your question is, should you label them as negative? No, I'm totally opposed to that. Okay. I'm totally opposed to that because you don't know by their outward behavior what really their inward beliefs are. But you give them an opportunity to change, and most of them will change. Most of what you have in your system that's the negativity was things that were caused rather than they brought to work.
Lonnie, just taking you across to Maslow's, the first and the second need of psychological needs and safety and security. If these two are not available, then what? I mean, this comes down to what you were talking about, but I'm just relating it to the theoretical model of Maslow of the psychological safety and safety, psychological needs and the safety and security. So they have to have some sort of a reinforcement.
Yeah, well, actually, the truth of the matter is, Dr. M, this model will not work. It will not work unless the majority of Maslow's elements 1 and 2 have been satisfied. Now, in most industrial countries, they are. You know, I mean, there may be some poverty and there may be some people who are not eating, but in most industrialized countries, starvation is not the #1 item on the hit parade. In poor, non-industrialized countries, it is. Okay, but that's an excellent point. This system really only addresses Maslow's third and higher levels of development. And if people are starving, or if they're scared to death that somebody's going to kill them, or you know the hurricane's going to wipe them out, the last thing they're worried about is workforce engagement. I'll tell you. Okay, so you're right, but I can tell you, in most of India, in most of the United States, in most of South America, Canada, Europe, these principles apply. They really do. Okay, but that's a good point. Let me bring out a point, even amplify a point that Bhupesh brought out. And you notice his presentation, he started with element #1, and he went to element #2, and he went to element #3. Okay. The truth of the matter is, you do not need to necessarily do it, just complete all of element 1 and move to 2, and do 2 and move to 3. But his point is extremely well made, that if element #1 is lacking, it's going to be hard to do element #2. And if element #1 and 2 are lacking, nobody's going to be doing Kaizen activities. Okay. Okay. So you need to take care of those by and large in that order. Okay. If you have problems at with the basics, those are the things you need to focus on first. Those are your priorities. You can be working on other things, but those element number one, basics, have to be taken care of. You will not get to an engaged workforce if people don't know what to do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
the truth of the matter is, I have not had a client yet where that was not their biggest problem. I have not had a client yet who believed that that was their biggest problem. Okay. So they always want to start at some higher level things. Okay. But you have to get back down to the basics. If you don't have standard work and you don't have trained people, you're building on a foundation that is sand. Okay. So you need to get those basics taken care of. And Bhupesh elaborated it extremely well in his presentation. Oh, by the way, one thing I mean, something, what I learned from these presentations. I learned that if I'm going to teach you people as a group something or present something so you can learn, Dr. M's presentation was like a teacher. His was very, very teacher oriented. Okay. He thought of you as pupils. He made a presentation. Okay. On the other hand, Nitin's presentation, Nitin Patil, was very much like an engineer. Flow diagrams, charts, tables. Okay. So if I want to teach Nitin, I got to think of flow charts, tables, and graphs. Okay. On the other hand, Bhupesh's perspective was more like a supervisor or a continuous improvement individual. He was thinking about how you go through this and how you continuously improve. So if I'm going to teach Bhupesh, I got to think that way. Okay. On the other hand, Nitin Ganesan, his presentation was more about realism. It had examples in it, concrete examples. Okay. Bhupesh was very much abstract, but very detailed and orderly. Okay. And Raj Kumar, if I want to teach Raj Kumar, I got to think about depth, because he talked about the systems of workforce engagement, and he got down to the specific 9 elements. Okay, I don't think anyone else mentioned that. Okay, and he mentioned that. So he's very interested in getting down to what are the fundamental building blocks of this system. Okay, now I say that only because people learn different ways, and as teachers, you have to be able to present information in different ways to connect with people differently. And so what I've learned from your presentations is how better to connect with each one of you individually, which I thought was immensely interesting, just for your info.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Lonnie.
Yes, sir.
My one point is, unless your system 1, system 2 is in place, okay, there is no point in talking about system 3 and 4 and 5. So is there any pre-qualification that yes, now I'm very good on system 1, subsystem 1. Now I'm ready to move to subsystem 2. And subsequently, what is the pre-qualification, a checklist, so that I know some measurement criteria, the system 1, system 2 are good in place. People are now getting more and more engaged, because objective is to reduce the disengagement, negativity, because it's a subsystem not in place. So how do we measure?
Yeah. Let me tell you, that is not an easy question to answer. But what I encourage all of my clients to do is don't worry so much about subsystem 1, subsystem 2, or subsystem 3. Worry about what's preventing you from achieving your objectives. So start at the end and work backwards. Okay. And then if you find out that something about subsystem 2 needs to be improved, communication needs to be improved, go back to that. But as you move forward, you will get to a point where you're very comfortable that we've taken care of subsystem 1, and we've taken care of subsystem 2, and we've taken care of subsystem 3. And then you'll get further down and you will actually uncover some things that lead you to believe that you got to go all the way back to system 1 and fix some basic things. There's something wrong with standard work. There's something wrong with our training or whatever. So it's not a straight line process. Okay. Now I have seen some pretty good evaluations that people have made that, and they evaluate subsystem 1 based on a 0 to 10 measurement, with radar charts and that type of stuff. And I do not discourage that. Okay. But what I do discourage is to say that, okay, we got subsystem one down pat. Now let's move, because you will come back to subsystem one again, and you'll get down there. And, you know, some of the most important things that Toyota does today is improve their standard work, which is back in subsystem one. And they're the kings of this whole thing. Okay. So, but what I would encourage you to do is, if that's helpful for you and your environment, create it. Okay. But keep in mind, it has to be flexible, and it has to be a tool to guide you towards progress, which is ultimately what satisfying your customer with just-in-time product at a decent price. Okay. So as you fail to meet those objectives, your opportunities, you're going to go backwards into the system for sure. Always. That's how problem solving is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a couple of other points here. And one of them that you mentioned is this, that people want to launch ahead and do 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 before they've even got 1 and 2 in place. Okay. They think that system 1 and 2 are working, and they're not. And I do a thing called the causal study, and we're running out of time here, so I'll have to be brief. But basically, you walk around the plant and you find things that are wrong, and I can take 2 people who are familiar with the plant and myself, and we can walk around the plant, and in the morning we can find 300 improvement opportunities. I mean, always. It's never a problem. Okay, those are all things that are associated with the basics that aren't being done right. Okay, and so almost everybody does not want to work on the basics. They want to work on the higher order things, but what they need to do, they need to get the basics down pat, just like you mentioned in your presentation. Okay. The second thing is, if you noticed in the diagram, there's those delays. Could you put the diagram up on the screen, Dr. M?
I'll do that for you. Yeah.
Okay. And the reason those delays are important has a lot to do with this issue of positivity.
Just give me a minute.
And the point is this, in the intrinsic motivation loop, you know, you and your team do some things, and you get some feeling of autonomy, you get some feeling of competence, and you get some feeling of relatedness because you've worked with others. Okay, then there's a time lag. Okay, and so if you notice in here, right here, oops, I can't draw on it, but
Nothing. Sorry for this. I just
no problem. I could have had it up here, and I should have. Pardon me. But if you look at the system diagram,
can you see it?
my pen won't show up here, but
Yeah, can you see
right
on the
after it
screen?
says, do the work and do Kaizen, you see a double hash line. Okay, that means there's the time delay. Okay, and then after that, okay, you've seen that something works well, and that fuels the relatedness issue. Okay, but there's a time lag. Okay, why? Because it took 4 hours to show up on the production by hour board, or it showed 2 days or whatever. You don't immediately get feedback that what you've done was positive. Okay, there's a time delay. Okay, and then notice here, there's another time delay right here. Oops. Right in front of that arrow. Okay, and the workplace improves. Okay, and then the business improves. So in the monthly review, they say, hey, you know, we improved productivity in the Roto-Rooback cell by 7%, and it improved the bottom line by 3%. We improved on-time delivery by 2%. And so the workplace has improved. Okay. But that information comes even back later. Okay. So here is a point about positivity. Positivity has a delay in it. It always has a delay in it. Okay. But on the other hand, let's say you have an accident in the plant. Everybody knows about that in 2 minutes. So bad news travels fast. Okay. So, and good news requires patience. Okay. So that's another reason why bad news is so powerful. It gets around immediately. There's some other dynamics as well, but those two time delays are very important, and you need to keep those in mind because each one of them presents a challenge to management. You know, and that's why, you know, you want the management to get the good news out quickly. Okay, because normally there's a delay in it. Okay. Okay. My fourth point is, and nobody mentioned this, but when doctors Deci and Ryan created their self-determination theory, which we talked about in the chapter on motivation, they made a point, and the whole world talks about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Okay. They do not talk about intrinsic motivation. They talk about intrinsic needs. And they say those are more than motivating factors, they're needs. Okay. They're not wants, they're not wishes, they're not hope fors, they're needs. Needs in the point that if they're satisfied, health will ensue. If they're frustrated, ill health will ensue. Okay. If you don't feel you have control over your environment, you get frustrated. Okay. People get ulcers over that. If you don't think people see you as being competent and you're worried about everybody looking over your shoulder, okay, that makes you ill at ease at work. Okay. So those two, I mean, all five of them, okay, are needs that we need to fulfill to feel better about ourselves. Most of them are emotional needs, but they translate into physical needs very quickly. Okay. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that of all of those five needs, far and away, the most important one is autonomy. Now, autonomy is not that you have control over everything. Okay. That's what it sounds like. But autonomy in the sense of psychological autonomy, it's that you have control over some things that affect you, but you can influence the things that affect you. You can comment, you can discuss it with people, you can change it, okay? But you can impact the things that affect you. That's what autonomy is. Doesn't mean you can change them, but you can impact them, you know? Let's say Nitin and I are working at the same workstation. He's working afternoons, I'm working graveyards, and I want to change the work cell. Okay, I can put my input in, and Nitin says, no, that's a bad idea, you know? And the team leader comes over and says, no, Nitin's right, we can't change it. Okay, well, at least I got my input. I could say something. Okay, it was rejected, okay, but it was rejected, and I can understand why. Those are the 5 high leverage points. Okay. I had 2 other notes here.
Can you repeat the earlier ones because I couldn't get the audio?
Pardon, Dr. M?
I couldn't get your audio on the previous 2 points that you mentioned. There's a dip in the audio.
The previous 2 points were that the intrinsic, what we call intrinsic motivators, doctors Deci and Ryan reframe them needs.
Yeah.
If they're satisfied, good health will ensue. If they're frustrated, ill health will ensue. And then the last point was sincere versus not sincere management feedback. And that is kind of the ultimate measure of whether you're going to get engagement or not. Okay. Those 4 types of feedback coupled with Kaizen activity are what are called the 5 high leverage points. And in chapter 8, we'll talk about the 5 high leverage points and how they mathematically add to the engagement equation. And if you can manage those and get those going in the right direction, you can have some wonderful engagement levels. Okay. The last thing, well, there's 2 things I want to do here. Is the next to last thing is I want to point out that this concept of what's inside people to be engaged, they have it. It's not a matter of management creating it. They have it. They come to work with it. Okay. Because that same engagement that you take to work is the same engagement you use at your family. It's the same engagement you use on your hobbies. It's the same engagement you use in your education. Okay. It's part of you. Okay. And the trick for management is to bring it out, allow it to flow. Okay. Don't stifle it, allow it to flow. And to the greatest extent, the way managers can create engagement in the workforce is get out of the way. Get out of the way. Quit putting barriers in front of people that prevent them from becoming engaged. Okay. And that's a very difficult thing for managers to accept, because they view their job as to control. Okay. And it is not. Their job is to guide. Okay. And if they can point you in the right direction, you'll come up with, and I mean you, the workforce, will come up with a bunch of good ideas. Okay. And my last point is that System 7, okay, which is the cultural network, okay, is incredibly important. Okay. All managers, I have not run across a manager yet who gave it the importance that it was due. Okay. Now, keep in mind, the cultural network is basically just the discussions that occur amongst employees at the job site or at the water cooler, over lunch, commuting to and from work. It's where the discussions are one-on-one, face-to-face, and somebody can tell you, hey, do you know that we got the contract with Nucor Steel today? No, I didn't hear that. Okay. Meanwhile, 3 days later, there's a bulletin board posting talking about it. Okay. Or somebody will say, well, and he says, who's George? You say, well, he's the supervisor on third shift. He got fired. And why is that? Well, he was sexually inappropriate with one of the women. Okay. Now, that word goes around the factory in 5 minutes. Everybody knows that. But about a week later, there's a posting that George has resigned. Okay. And George has resigned by mutual agreement between the company and George. Okay. That's what it is. Okay. So that's what the bulletin board system says. But 3 days earlier, you found the truth. That's the cultural network. And that's why it works. It's face-to-face. It's one-on-one. Okay. It's with people you trust and know. Okay. All of the bulletin board postings, company newsletters, webinars, YouTube messages made by the boss and all of that is interesting, but it's not powerful. Okay. Now, the problem is the bosses think it's powerful. It's not. It just isn't, It's just like, I mean, you can tell your kid, your teenage son, 1,000 things, but he's going to spend more time listening to his friends than he is to you. Okay. Friends don't know squat, but he listens to them. Why? Because they're his friends, And so the cultural network is incredibly important. I have yet to find a manager who works it well. Let me put it that way. My boss one time was pretty good at it, but even he had his weak spots. Okay. The very last thing I want to do is if you could give me the screen, Dr. M, I would like to share my screen with
Give me a second.
with you. Let me see here.
You have already got a permission, sir.
There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. This is my website, and it's www.qc-ep.com. And there is just a ton of information there. Okay. I've got a technical library. So if you're interested in finding some books, you could go through it, and the books are categorized. Here's my books on DOE. Okay. And so it's all the books that I have in my library on designs of experiments. And here you can see there's statistics for experimenters, designs of experimenters by Fisher, the original book, Designing for Quality by Matar, a design analysis of mixture by Montgomery. Okay, you can get it, and I put a little comment about each one of those books. So that's something about books. I've got a ton of stuff on lean manufacturing, an overview. I got stuff on problem solving. I've got information on problem solving, the 5 precursors to lean. Okay, like for example, on problem solving, I've got Kepner-Trigo problem solving. I got the 5 whys, the 6 questions of continuous improvement. I've got examples of A3. And I put examples in here. I put good examples and bad examples. So you can see what some of the bad examples are. But how to use A3 problem solving in your work. Okay, a ton of stuff. I've got stuff on cultural evaluation, leadership, the 5 supervisory tools of leadership, a ton of stuff about leader standard work. Okay, and so you can go through there and it'll give you a bunch of information, and you may have a bunch of questions as well. There's stuff about employee engagement. Okay, what's called our products, things I sell. But here's one thing I wanted to point out to you is a place that Dr. M has gone several times, I know, but it's white papers, articles that I have published. Okay, post in Quality Progress or in Industry Week or on AME or in ASQ or something, but all kinds of topics. Mine was the lead story on Indian Management Review magazine. I don't know, does anybody get that?
I got it.
Yeah, but it was the cover story for 1 month, and let me see if the cover's up there. Yeah, it's called The Devolvement of Lean. But so there's lots of papers there. People talk about a leadership shortage, and I say phooey. There is no leadership shortage. The shortage is in training people to be leaders. But at any rate, there's a bunch of white papers, and I wanted to guide you to those. Okay, sustaining your gains, loyalist lurkers and laggards. Okay, but the last thing I would like to do is show you. I have another website, and it's in the process of being constructed, and is right now there's no work going on it because one of the key members, his parents are very, very ill, and so he hasn't been able to work with us for over a year. So we haven't created any new material, but there is a bunch of material there that I'd like to show you. And here's the name of the website, tribeandpo.com. And there's a ton of information about engagement. Okay. And the book, The Science of Workforce Engagement, was built to support this website. This website is built on that book. Okay. And there's some resources. Okay. And one of those resources is some books, and several of my books are listed here. But here's one book that I wrote that I haven't told you about. It's called Loyalist Lurkers, Laggards, and the Lemmings. Okay. And you can get it free. All you have to do is go to the website and download it. Okay. And it's about 20 pages or something like that. It's about a 10-minute read. But I think it's funny, to be honest with you. I think it's funny because it puts in funny terminology, many things that you will recognize in reality, I think. But you can get that for free. You can download it. And actually you can, if you want to use parts of it, you can use parts of it. It's not copyrighted or anything else like that. But it lists the other books here. My other books, at least some of them. We were in the process of completing this resource section when my friend who does all the website work, his parents got sick. He's from Canada, and both of his parents at the same time got sick, and He has a brother that lives not too far away, but he's their primary caregiver. But so we'll get back to that one of these days, I hope. But I did want to include you in, and there's a bunch of stuff here. You can go here to like engagement 101, and it will give you the basics. See, you can tell that the people here are Canadian. See how they spell behavioral? Well, maybe you spell it that way in India.
Yeah, we spell it
It's
that
the
way.
British.
Yeah, we spell it that way.
Pardon?
We do
Yeah.
spell it that way.
In the United States, we don't put that U in there.
Yeah.
Okay. But these guys are Canadians, you know. They're good guys. But it talks about the basics and there's some graphics for it and all of these articles, if you want, you can read and download. So if you want to present some stuff at your company, it's all here. Okay. How to define ways. If you remember in the book, we talk about defining it 4 different ways: behaviorally, scientifically, metaphorically, and being the natural state. So so I wanted to show you that just so you could have access to more resources if you so wish. Okay. And with that, I open the meeting for anybody who has a question, thought, idea, issue, concern, whatever's on your mind.
Yeah, you got to give the screen. Stop sharing. Thanks. You know
There we
what,
go.
Lonnie? You just answered my question. The question was that we got all the study group going and we were trying to motivate. And I was thinking that what else can I give it to them? What else can I give? What's the sort of an eccentric motivation except to follow the textbook? And now you open the entire chapter that, look, the entire literature website is available on Lonnie's. And I was just wondering, how do I motivate these guys again to, you know, to form the second group, the third group, whatever it is of sharing, learning, sharing and learning. That is my single objective. And I was wondering, what can I give them? So, and now there's all divine blessings. I always believe in divine intervention. You brought up this, it was not even thought of. And I was surprised that, look, I didn't know the second website was getting formed, Lonnie, to be honest. I knew this website and I had picked up a lot of it to get you on the podcast. So there you go. So there is the extrinsic motivation for all of you to stay till 5th August.
Okay. But Dr.
And
M,
get the
I'd
second
like
batch
to,
ready.
yeah, Dr. M, I'd like to piggyback on what you just said. You know, kind of like what can I add? Well, I think each person in this group can add something to each other person. Okay. Because as you made your presentation of what this meant to you and how you understood it, you brought some thoughts to everybody else that they didn't have because you're thinking like a teacher. Okay. Bhupesh was thinking about how do I make this stuff better? Okay. And I picked up points from everybody on this that I didn't initially have. And so even though the book is there and even though the information is there, learning the perspective from other people is also valuable. And I call it penetrating. Okay. I like to say that if knowledge is like this, I want to kind of bust away at these edges and see how I can make it bigger. And
Yes.
and in no small measure, each one of you have helped me with that because Nitin made me think a little bit more about it in the technical sense. Okay. And Nitin Ganeshan made me think about it more as, well, make sure we've got some examples. And Bhupesh said, let's make sure we do this in order because it's important. Okay.
Yes.
How are we going to do it as a continuous improvement engineer? Okay. And Raj Kumar said, hey, by the way, all of those things are important, but let's don't forget there's more to this. There's a depth of understanding that we need to have. Okay. And with depth of understanding, I do have one last question. Okay. Raj Kumar, could you put up a slide again? And what I would like to see.
Just 1 minute. I've got to allow you to share the screen. Raj?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Yep.
Put up your second slide that had the 9 elements.
Hello.
Next one.
The next one.
This is the second one.
Okay, you didn't number them, but
Yeah.
go down to number 7.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, and I would like to discuss that just a little bit as a group. A system's essential properties derive more from its parts interactions than from the actions taken separately. These properties will persist over time in a wide array of circumstances. Okay, so let's talk about a car for just a second. A car has an engine, it has tires, it has a transmission, it has a rear end. Okay, and the car can do things. Okay, but it can only do things because the engine interacts with the transmission, which interacts with the rear end, which interacts with the axle, which interacts with the tire, right? The tire itself can do nothing. Okay.
Absolutely.
The engine itself can do nothing. Okay. But when you put them together, okay. But what do you find businesses working on the whole system? Or do you find businesses working on the tires, metaphorically, I mean, working on the tires, working on the transmissions, working on the rear end?
So they work on the
How does
system.
that apply to businesses?
Yeah, they work on parts. They don't work on the total thing. They just focus
Right.
on.
Work
Yeah.
on the parts, yeah.
And so purchasing works on reducing the cost to supply. Okay. And meanwhile, maintenance says, okay, you bought cheaper parts, but now we got to maintain them all the time, you know? Okay. That is one of the key issues that people really do not understand. And if you take it one step further, when managers create silo-specific KPIs, and you understand what I mean by silo-specific KPIs?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. For example, the purpose for maintenance to reduce costs. Okay. Well, maintenance can reduce costs. There's no problem with that. Just do less maintenance. You know, have fewer people on the payroll, buy cheaper parts. It's easy to reduce maintenance. Okay. But then 6 months later, you pay a big pay a big price with reliability. Okay. So managers make this worse by not creating the right KPIs.
Lonnie, can I add to this?
Please, please.
Yeah. When I did this hotel story with Robertson Hunter Stewart, that was about a hotel, and the KPI that was given to the housekeeping, that it should be spick and span. Take your time, but it should be spick and span. And the KPI given to the receptionist is that the guest should be checked in within 5 minutes. Now, the housekeeping people said it takes me 30 minutes to make a spick and span. The receptionist is nothing doing. I got to get my guests in 5 minutes. Look at the contradiction in timing given by the general manager.
Yeah. There's lots of examples, lots of examples. Okay. Does anybody else want to give an example?
Don't talk to me about it. I'm just relieved of my health issue. I know what they did.
Okay. Well, let's talk about health for just a second. You know,
Raj,
I don't know about
would
you.
you like Raj to stop sharing the screen so that we can see all? Yeah. Let me
Okay.
let me talk about myself. I'm recording it, so okay.
Go ahead.
The diabetologist looks at the sugar level or what have you. The nephrologist looks at the kidney function. The gastroenterologist looks at my liver. They don't look at what medicines they're giving that affects the other. Okay, I visited 5 doctors today, and they were trying to eliminate the medicines of each other's. But I'm on the top of the world.
Yeah. Well, and even simpler. Let's say, you know, I've put on a lot of weight over the last 10 years. And so my wife put me on a diet. Okay. But I made the conscious decision that I want to lose the weight very slowly, 1 or 2 pounds a month. I could be really aggressive and lose 2 or 3 pounds a week, I think. But the problem with that, if you think about your system as a body, okay, the reason I gained weight was not just because I ate too much. It's because my sleep habits weren't good. My exercise habits weren't good. I wasn't drinking enough water. Okay. All of those fit together. Okay. And so you cannot just improve an overall system very often by improving one thing. Okay. Sometimes you can make a lot of progress, but pretty soon there's issues. And that's why people will lose. I've seen people lose 50 pounds, in a year. They lost 50 pounds. Okay. Well, a year later, they put it right back on. Okay. And the reason was they changed the way they eat. Okay. But they couldn't change their whole lifestyle, and their lifestyle didn't adjust. Okay. And so pretty soon they were eating again. Okay. And if you're a nervous eater like me, when I get nervous, that's what I want to do. I want to munch on something. And so for me to lose weight, I need to work on my emotional status. And I got to be aware of that. And I got to say, well, wait a minute, Wilson, you're getting nervous about this. What the hell's the story? And that's as much a weight reducing aspect to me as it is how much I eat, And so you've got to be careful with this attacking one thing and trying to improve it. Okay. Now, the final item that Raj Kumar had on his list is because of these things, you cannot improve a system by analysis. Now, remember the discussion of analysis? You take things and you break them down. Okay. Then you fix the things at the end. Okay. Well, ultimately, as you put things back together again, those things you fixed at the end have to interact with the other things. The way you eat have to interact with your diet. In Dr. M's case, as he takes one medicine, it has to interact with another medicine. Okay. And so when you want to repair a system, okay, or improve a system, very often you cannot just improve its parts. As a matter of fact, you can destroy a system by doing that. I've seen it done. In Chevron, one time, the huge emphasis in the corporation was to reduce maintenance costs. So everybody worked at reduced maintenance cost. Okay. And so projects that needed to be done were put off for 6 months. Things that needed to be done in an A-class fashion were done in a B-class fashion. And about a year, 18 months later, all of a sudden, we start all kinds of equipment failures. Okay. And even though we had saved all this maintenance money, pretty soon we had reliability issues. And the reliability issues were 10 times as impactful as what we'd saved on the maintenance. Okay. And so you can, in fact, destroy the overall system by improving a subsystem. Okay. So that's why you need analysis and synthesis at the same time. That's what systems thinking is. Systems thinking is integrating analysis with synthesis. Okay. So you can understand the parts of a system by analysis. You cannot understand the system. You can only understand the system by synthesis, putting things back together again.
Very true. That is correct.
That is why this chapter is so critical to the understanding. I mean, this is the heart and soul of the whole book. And the driving force behind this is the intrinsic motivational loop. Okay. They're all important. They're all important.
Yes.
Some are just more urgent than others.
And
Okay. I've talked way beyond my allotted.
No. Something wonderful happened today. Is the 1 hour that we scheduled when we took the liberty of putting 15 minutes more. And today we put, I can tell you, it's 9:11. So it's about 41 minutes more than 1 hour that we put in this session.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
So thank you very much. And
Thank you.
I didn't know. I just want to share something with you. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you very much. And it was quite interesting.
Yes.